Power Athlete Nation, welcome back to the Primal Proficiency Series. Today we are coming the king of all primals, the bench press.
This is the one primal movement that every high school football player has accumulated 10,000 reps of. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong.
It is the core movement of the Treasure Chest program, Mega Pecs, and Pressosaurus Rex.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah. But here's what we're going to follow today, guys. We're going to introduce the setup, the execution, line of action to make sure that you are getting the most out of that horizontal press, one of Power Athlete's 7 primal movements.
And we're going to hold on to the themes we've been covering throughout the Primal series: posture and position, primal proficiency, and now with the upper body, that tensile strength. This is one of the most safe movements that we can give to our young athletes to really build that tensile strength, this closed chain movement, keeping our feet connected to the floor, hands connected to the bar, and really displaying power with the whole body.
So here we go. Let's grip it and let's rip it. Power Athlete Nation, here we are, about to get into our horizontal press. The most popular version of this sucker is going to be the bench press. And this is where we're going to have all our athletes start and learn and build primal proficiency. Tex is going to be my Vanna White, aka Showgirl, and we're going to go through setup and execution, and some tips and tricks on handling if you have a spotter, and also what you need to do if you're training alone. So first things first, we're gonna really walk through in great detail Tex getting set up for a nice solid bench press here. We love the foot on the ground, toes forward setup, knees on the instep. We're gonna keep that common theme throughout every primal, and we're not gonna make a sacrifice just because we're doing an upper body, okay? So we want good, solid foot contact on the ground because we want a closed chain movement. So I want the end of your kinetic chain, that bottom of that foot on the ground. We also want a base of support through the hip girdle. So that tukish, that derriere is gonna make contact with this bench and maintain contact with the bench. The next thing we're gonna talk about is working our way up to that shoulder girdle, okay? You can see Tex doing a little shimmy that makes all the girls laugh, right? But we're gonna shimmy those shoulders down and create a slight arch in that low back. So we are gonna give up some lumbar, that flat dead bug back, but you'll see why in a little bit, guys. And then what Tex has now is a retracted and depressed shoulder. So that's retracted, depressed, okay? So we're gonna retract and depress that shoulder girdle, really sinking the head of the humerus down into that shoulder girdle to get in the best position to start to press off of. And it's important to maintain this position through our range of motion. Now I'm gonna act as Tex's spotter / handler, and I'm gonna get up on my bench and assume the spotting position, right? Just like we learned in high school, guys, spotters in charge. They're here to help, not to do the work for your athletes. But we're gonna start with 4 hands. The lift is gonna be communicated between the spotter and the athlete. Tex, you ready to rock?
Ready.
And we're both gonna lift off. And I lift off, but I'm not lifting Tex out of his shoulder position. So it's important that you, the spotter, handle only to the range of motion that your athlete goes. We don't want to pull that shoulder out of retraction, okay? Now, as Tex goes and executes this movement, a couple things we want to note. First up, hang on, buddy. I know you want to get that pump in, all right? We want to notice grip width. Tex is about 1 finger width off of the transition of smooth to knurling. We're always going to start our athletes out in a close grip position. A couple reasons for that. Again, we'll come back to that. The next thing we're going to do is break that bar. Okay, so you're going to see that external rotation thing about breaking the bar, bending the bar. This is going to create torque through that shoulder girdle. Tex is going to lower down, nice, slow, and controlled. Go ahead and give me a few, Tex. Notice he's hitting that trunk. He's not bouncing, okay? He's keeping that tension through the anterior delt, through the pec, through that whole system that's responsible for blasting that bar off the chest. Go ahead and rest for me just a second, big guy. Now, where's that bar gonna strike? It's gonna depend on the athlete's arm length, humerus length, but somewhere between that nipple line and that xiphoid process, that bony protrusion at the bottom of your sternum. Now, we wanna keep the elbows in as tight as we can. We wanna keep the forearms straight or vertical as much as we can. And as we drive up, we want to think about pushing towards the belly button. It's about accelerated adaptation. It's about skill transfer. That is going to be our line of action for our bench press. Now, as our athlete is going, and I'm a good spotter, I'm going to be here ready to help if shit gets pretty sketchy. But as our athlete finishes up, boom, we go 2 hands, 4 hands, into the rack together, and bring it down. So guys, don't overthink it. Remember, the only thing that's changing here is that pressing action. Notice how base of support doesn't change. Don't fall for the gimmick. Don't push beyond your ability to maintain posture and position through range of motion. So there you have it, folks. We've gone through our horizontal press. Now there's a couple little asterisks that I wanted to revisit, one of which was that low back arch. It abandons our dead bug home position, which we often refer to as a performance perspective for our athletes to maintain a posture and position through space. But here's the catch. We said this is the safest primal movement pattern, assuming you can maintain posture and position. And we find that one of the best ways to give your athlete a proprioceptive feedback mechanism is to put the spine of the scapula on the flat surface of the bench. So it's about giving your athlete the awareness to keep the shoulders retracted and depressed. Since we're not loading the spine at that cervical junction, we can have some arch there without worrying about injury.
Exactly. So again, we also have tensile strength, so we need that trunk to connect our feet and our foot position, driving our feet into the ground to send that energy through, again, an active trunk, even with the arch, into the shoulder girdle, and then expressed in that violent horizontal press.
So here's the deal. Many of you out there watching this have done the 1,500 days of bench press program called high school, right? And some of us have tweaked a wing. And here's how it happens. Wider grip, elevation, internal rotation. That little sucker, that's what tweaks the shoulder. So that's why we're bringing that grip in. We're getting that arch to pin that scapula down to keep shoulder retracted, depressed, and avoid any sort of internal rotation to tweak up that shoulder. So that's how we're going to protect our athletes through this absolutely essential primal movement pattern.
For sport, remember, we're not talking about the sport of bench pressing. We're talking about horizontal pressing to transfer to the field. So we're using that narrow grip because it doesn't matter if you're playing football, lacrosse, any contact sport, you need to be here in a protected shoulder girdle position and explosive.
There you have it, folks. Get under a barbell, find a spotter. If you don't have a spotter, you need to have those safety arms because you don't want to be a YouTube highlight on the fail reel. All right?
Yeah, and don't let your only horizontal pressing be push-ups. We don't got time for that.
Now, tell them, Tex. Here.
I went in a little hard there.
What if it broke?
Good thing we're rolling. It was a horizontal press.